The stars had always seemed peaceful to Captain Jake Morrison, as he stood on the observation deck of humanity's Hope Station, orbiting Mars. He had been in space for 15 years and never seen anything that made him worry about what might be out there beyond the solar system. His wife Linda and their 2 kids were back on Earth waiting for him to finish his rotation in 3 months. He was thinking about the surprise party his daughter was planning for his return when the alarms started screaming through every corridor of the station. The sensors picked them up first. 12 massive ships appearing out of nowhere in perfect formation above Mars. Each vessel was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. They just materialized there as if space itself had opened up to let them through. Jake ran to the command center where his crew was already scrambling to figure out what they were seeing. Before anyone could send a message or even finish analyzing the sensor data, the alien ships opened fire. Humanity's Hope Station lasted exactly 8 seconds. Beams of pure energy cut through the hull like it was made of paper. Jake Morrison and 236 other people died before they could even understand what was killing them. The station exploded in a ball of fire that briefly lit up the Martian sky before the vacuum snuffed it out. Earth, every government and military installation, watched in horror as their first contact with alien life turned into mass murder in less than a minute. President Henry Collins stood in the Situation Room beneath Washington, watching the feed from Mars go dark. Then the alien fleet started moving toward Earth, and that's when the messages came. They weren't in English or Chinese or any human language, but the math was universal. Any species smart enough to build radios could understand numbers. The message was simple and terrifying. Submit or die. Colonel Amy Porter commanded Earth's only defense network. She had satellites armed with nuclear missiles and laser weapons orbiting the planet. Everything humanity had built to protect itself from other humans. She looked at her tactical officer, Lieutenant Chris Turner, and knew what he was thinking because she was thinking the same thing. They were about to fight an enemy with technology that might as well be magic compared to what they had. The authorization came through from the president. Every weapon platform fired at once. Nuclear missiles streaked up from Earth. Kinetic weapons launched from hidden satellites. Experimental lasers that had cost billions to develop all focused on the alien fleet. The aliens didn't even slow down. Their shields just absorbed everything humanity threw at them like rain hitting a windshield. Then they started shooting back. Beijing died first. 1 beam from space and 8 million people were just gone. The city turned into a crater of melted glass. New York was second, then Moscow, then London, Tokyo, São Paulo, Mexico City, Mumbai, Los Angeles. Each beam took less than 3 seconds to turn a major city into a graveyard. The aliens destroyed 15 cities in under an hour. 200 million people dead. Then the fleet just left. They didn't occupy Earth. They didn't make demands. They just killed enough people to make their point and disappeared back into whatever dark corner of space they came from. President Collins stood in the bunker looking at casualty reports that kept climbing. General Frank Hayes stood next to him looking 20 years older than he had that morning. Around them were the few leaders who survived because they hadn't been in the targeted cities. The room was silent except for the sound of someone crying in the corner. Collins finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. They came here and killed our people like we were insects. This wasn't a war. This was them checking to see if we were worth their time. They wanted to know if we would fight back or just roll over and die. Hayes looked at the president with hard eyes. Then they made a mistake. They didn't kill enough of us. They left 7 billion people alive who now know exactly what's out there and exactly what we need to do about it. The aliens were called the Xanther. Humanity figured that out from analyzing the radiation signatures their ships left behind. The Xanther belonged to something called the Galactic Council, a group of 17 alien species that controlled thousands of planets across multiple spiral arms of the galaxy. They had a system for dealing with new species. They would show up and attack just hard enough to see how the newcomers responded. Then they would decide if the new species was worth keeping around or if they should be wiped out completely. Earth had been classified as a minor species. Technological level 2.1, military capability negligible, survival probability low. The file was closed. The case was done. In the vast bureaucracy of galactic politics, Earth was just another primitive world that had learned its place. The council moved on to other business. They had no idea what they had started. In the days after the attack, humanity did something the galaxy had never seen before. Every nation on Earth put aside every difference they ever had. Old enemies became allies. Border disputes were forgotten. Political ideologies stopped mattering. Because suddenly none of that seemed important compared to the fact that there were aliens out there who thought humans were bugs that could be squashed whenever convenient. The United Earth Assembly formed within a week. Every country sent representatives. Every military force merged into one command structure. Every scientist and engineer and factory worker was mobilized for a single purpose: survival. Not just survival, but making sure that nothing like this could ever happen again. They started building underground cities so orbital bombardment couldn't kill them, shipyards on Mars and the Moon, mining operations in the asteroid belt, fusion reactors, weapon factories, research labs working around the clock to figure out how the Xanthir technology worked. Humanity had been to space before, but always slowly and carefully. Now they went with desperate speed and unlimited resources. Children who survived the attack grew up learning advanced physics and engineering before they learned history, because history didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was the future. Every person on Earth understood that they were in a race. Either humanity would become strong enough to defend itself, or the next time aliens showed up they would finish the job. President Collins addressed the world from the new capital they were building underground in Denver. "We have 5 years," he said. "Maybe 10 if we're lucky. That's how long it will take them to notice we didn't just give up and die. When they come back, we need to be ready. Not just to defend ourselves, but to make them regret they ever found us." The crowd didn't cheer. There was nothing to cheer about. 200 million people were dead. Entire cities were gone. But everyone who heard those words understood what was being asked of them. The old world was dead. Now they had to build a new one. A world that could fight back. A world that could make aliens bleed. 5 years after the Xanthir killed 200 million humans, the solar system looked completely different. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and turned into either a habitat or a factory. Mars had 3 massive shipyards working day and night. The Moon was covered in weapons testing ranges and training facilities. Earth itself had moved most of its population underground, into cities that could survive anything short of the planet cracking in half. Dr. Nathan Pierce stood in a clean room on the Moon watching the final assembly of something that should have been impossible. He was only 38, but he was in charge of the most important project humanity had ever attempted. They called it the jump drive, a way to travel faster than light just like the Xanthir did. The problem was humans had never invented this technology. They had stolen it. Or more accurately, they had reverse engineered it from the sensor readings of Xanthir ships. Nathan and his team had spent 5 years doing math that made their brains hurt and building prototypes that exploded more often than they worked. His assistant, Dr. Grace Palmer, watched the same readings he did. She had lost her parents and 2 brothers when Tokyo was hit. She hadn't smiled since that day. "The equations work," she said. "We actually figured out how to bend space. It took the Xanthir 200 years to develop this. We did it in 5. Nathan nodded, but he wasn't celebrating. "Fear makes you work faster," he said. "How long before we can make enough of these for a fleet?" "The factories on Titan should be ready in 6 months. After that, we can produce 20 jump drives every month. That means in 2 years we could have almost 500 ships capable of going anywhere in the galaxy." Admiral Kyle Bennett was in charge of building the fleet. He had been a destroyer captain during the Xanthir attack. He watched helplessly as aliens destroyed every ship humanity had in orbit. Now at 51 years old, he had unlimited authority and unlimited resources to make sure that never happened again. His office was on Phobos, the small moon of Mars, where he could watch the shipyards work. Commander Lisa Grant brought him the daily production report. "The Roosevelt is finished," she said. "Our first real warship, 1,200 feet long, fusion reactor that could power a city, magnetic cannons that can shoot projectiles at a fraction of light speed, laser batteries, missile pods. The Princeton and Lincoln will be ready next month." Bennett looked at the numbers and shook his head. "Not enough. The Xanthir sent 12 ships to teach us a lesson. We need to send 100 to teach them 1 back." Lisa understood. "The automated shipyards will be online in 8 months. After that, production goes exponential. We'll be building ships faster than we can train crews for them." Training the crews was another challenge. Before the attack, the total number of humans who had been in space was maybe 10,000. Now they needed hundreds of thousands of people who could operate warships and fight in zero gravity. The military academies ran constantly. As soon as one class graduated, another started. Young people who should have been in college were instead learning how to calculate firing solutions and operate fusion reactors. On Earth, what remained of civilization had transformed completely. Every factory now made weapons or ships or supplies for the military. Every farm focused on feeding the workers. Entertainment mostly stopped. Sports leagues shut down. Movie studios closed. Because nobody had time for any of that anymore. Humanity had one goal and everything else was a distraction. President Collins was in his second term now. He hadn't really run for re-election. There just weren't any other candidates. Everyone was too busy. He addressed the United Earth Assembly from Denver. The chamber was packed with representatives from every nation on the planet. 5 years ago, they came to our world and murdered our people, he said. They did it casually, like someone stepping on an ant. They did it to test us, to see if we deserve to exist in their galaxy. Today I can report that we have answered their test. Humanity is no longer trapped on one planet. We have faster than light travel. We have weapons that can crack moons. And most importantly, we have the will to use them. The assembly applauded, but Collins held up his hand for quiet. But we have to be smart about this. The Galactic Council controls thousands of worlds. They have technology we can't match yet, so we won't attack blindly. We'll gather intelligence. We'll learn everything about them. We'll become strong enough that when we finally strike, they'll never forget it. In a secret, based deep under the lunar surface, another program was reaching completion. Dr. Helen Carter used to study the human brain at MIT. Now she was in charge of something called the Human Enhancement Initiative. The program was controversial, but there was no shortage of volunteers. People who had lost everything and wanted revenge lined up to be test subjects. The neural implants are stable, she reported. Our enhanced soldiers can process information 10 times faster than normal humans. They can control powered armor with just their thoughts. Reaction time is measured in milliseconds. They're faster and stronger than any normal human could ever be. Captain Ryan Hughes was the first person to complete the program. He was 28 and had been engaged before the attack. His fiancée died in New York. Now he had computer chips in his brain and synthetic muscles woven through his body. He stood in a combat suit that weighed half a ton but felt like a second skin. "How do you feel?" Dr. Carter asked him. Ryan flexed his hand and watched the armor respond perfectly. "Ready," he said. "When do we leave?" "The Roosevelt departs in 3 weeks. First deep space mission. You'll be leading the Marine unit." The mission was reconnaissance, but everyone knew it was more than that. They were going to find the Xanthir homeworld. They were going to see how well defended it was. And they were going to let the aliens know that humanity remembered what happened 5 years ago. The volunteers who signed up for the mission knew they probably weren't coming back. The Roosevelt was tough, but it was one ship going into enemy territory. If things went wrong, they would die a long way from home. But every single person who applied understood what was at stake. The Xanthir thought they had crushed humanity. They thought killing 200 million people would make the survivors give up. Ryan stood in the briefing room with 49 other enhanced Marines. Admiral Bennett himself came to talk to them before they left. "You're not just soldiers," he told them. "You're messengers. The message you're going to deliver is simple. Humanity doesn't forgive. Humanity doesn't forget. And humanity will never stop coming for anyone who hurts us." The day the Roosevelt launched, half the solar system watched. It was the first human ship to leave for another star. The first time humanity would venture into the galaxy not as explorers but as warriors. Captain Diana Ross commanded the Roosevelt. She was 36 and had been a test pilot before the war. Now she was taking 300 people into the dark. The jump to faster than light speed felt strange. Space twisted in ways that human eyes weren't meant to see. Then they were moving through dimensions that didn't quite make sense. The trip to the nearest Xanthir outpost would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to think about what they were going to do. Nathan Pierce's calculations had been perfect. The jump drive worked exactly as designed. For the first time in 5 years, he allowed himself to feel something like hope. Not hope that things would go back to normal. That world was gone forever. But hope that maybe humanity had a chance. Back on Earth, in the underground cities, people went about their work. Children studied. Engineers built. Soldiers trained. Everyone doing their part. Because they all understood the truth. The Xanthir had made humanity choose between giving up or becoming something harder and meaner and more dangerous than they had ever been before. Humanity had made their choice. The galaxy was about to find out what that choice meant. The Roosevelt dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a star system. The humans had designated Xanthir 7. Captain Diana Ross stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display update as sensors gathered information. They had traveled 23 light-years from Earth. This was farther than any human had ever been from home. Lieutenant Kevin Morris handled the navigation station. Dropping to normal space now, he reported. All systems working perfectly. No sign we've been detected yet. Diana studied the enemy position. The system had one Xanthir patrol ship and an orbital mining platform. Intelligence said about 10,000 workers and maybe 500 soldiers. It wasn't a major military target, but that was exactly why they had chosen it. Humanity's first strike needed to succeed and succeed completely. Commander Ryan Hughes stood in the Marine Bay with his enhanced soldiers checking their equipment. Each Marine wore powered armor and carried magnetic rifles that could punch through solid steel. They had trained for 5 years for this moment. Now they were finally going to hit back. Listen carefully, Ryan told his squad leaders. Our orders are total elimination. No survivors. No witnesses. The Xanthir showed us what they think mercy looks like. 200 million dead in one afternoon. Today we start teaching them about consequences. Some of the younger Marines looked uncomfortable. These were people who had signed up to defend Earth, not to commit what was essentially mass murder. But Ryan had thought about this a lot during the long voyage. The Xanthir hadn't asked questions before they destroyed Beijing. They hadn't worried about civilians when they vaporized New York. War was ugly and humanity hadn't started this one. Captain Diana made the final decision. She had authorization from Admiral Bennett himself. All weapons prepare to fire. Target the patrol ship first, then the platform, then the colony installations. We want complete destruction. The Roosevelt carried 16 magnetic cannons that could launch projectiles at incredible speeds. At this range against an unprepared target, they were absolutely devastating. Diana designated each target carefully. The patrol ship had shields, but they weren't active because the Xanthir didn't think they needed them. Fire, she ordered. Tungsten slugs, each weighing several tons, crossed the distance in seconds. The Xanthir patrol ship's shields flickered on automatically, but they couldn't handle the barrage. The ship came apart in a ball of fire and debris. The orbital platform lasted about 8 seconds before it too was reduced to wreckage spreading across millions of kilometers. Deploy Marines, Diana commanded. Secure the colony and eliminate all resistance. Ryan's dropship fell through the atmosphere with its heat shields glowing white-hot. Around him, his Marines sat in silence. They were about to kill thousands of beings who hadn't personally done anything to humanity. But those beings were part of the same species that had murdered 200 million humans. In war, sometimes the innocent suffered alongside the guilty. The dropship landed in the center of the colony. The ramp dropped and Ryan led his squad out into the alien city. The Xanthir defenders reacted quickly, but they had never faced humans in combat. They expected standard galactic warfare, warnings and negotiations and limited engagement. Instead, they got 50 cybernetically enhanced soldiers who moved with inhuman speed and fought with cold efficiency. Ryan's enhanced reflexes made everything seem to move in slow motion. He saw a Xanthir soldier raising a plasma weapon. He tracked the barrel alignment and put 3 tungsten rounds through the alien's chest before the trigger was even pulled. Around him, his squad advanced like a machine, each Marine covering the others. Moving through the colony with ruthless precision, the battle was over in 27 minutes. When the smoke cleared, the colony was secured. Not a single Xanthir remained alive. Ryan stood among the bodies and felt nothing. He had expected to feel guilty or sick or something. Instead, he just felt empty. Grace Palmer had said fear was a powerful motivator. So was grief. Back on the Roosevelt, Diana watched her crew download data from the colony computers. They found shield specifications, sensor designs. Most importantly, they found star charts showing Xanthir territory and military installations. This was intelligence that would be worth its weight in gold. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, Lieutenant Kevin reported. It's on the standard galactic frequency. They're demanding we identify ourselves and surrender. Diana almost smiled. Let them demand. Helm, plot a course for Xanthir 12. That's their regional military command base. We're going to pay them a visit too. Over the next 3 months, the Roosevelt became a ghost story told across Xanthir space. The human ship appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Diana hit 17 installations, killed over 60,000 Xanthir, and captured enough technology to advance humanity's military development by decades. The Xanthir military command finally understood they had a serious problem. This wasn't a primitive species lucky enough to steal some technology. These humans were learning and adapting faster than should be possible. Every engagement taught them something new. Every captured piece of equipment was reverse-engineered and improved. Ryan Hughes led a particularly bold raid on the Xanthir homeworld itself. His team infiltrated the planetary defense network, planted listening devices throughout their communication system, and escaped before anyone realized they had been there. The intelligence they gathered was priceless. Complete specifications of every Xanthir weapon system, detailed maps of their empire, information about the Galactic Council's structure and politics. What they learned was disturbing. The Council maintained power through overwhelming force. Any species that challenged the established order faced coordinated military action from multiple member states. The Xanthir assault on Earth had been routine by their standards. Just a simple test to see where humanity fit in the hierarchy. If humans became a real threat, the Council would bring thousands of warships against them. Captain Diana sent encrypted reports back to Earth after every mission. Admiral Bennett compiled the intelligence and presented it to President Collins. The news wasn't good. We're winning battles, Collins said, but we might lose the war. The moment the Council sees us as a genuine threat, we'll face forces we can't possibly defeat. General Hayes leaned forward across the conference table. Then we make ourselves too dangerous to fight. We become so unpredictable and violent that the cost of destroying us exceeds any benefit they might gain. Ambassador Patricia Cole objected. You're talking about terrorism on an interstellar scale, attacking civilians, destroying infrastructure that has nothing to do with military operations. Hayes didn't back down. I'm talking about survival. We didn't choose this war. The Xanthir came to Earth and murdered 200 million people because they thought we didn't matter. Now we're teaching them that there are consequences. If they want to make us into monsters, then that's what we'll become. The debate continued, but ultimately the decision was made. Humanity would expand its offensive, not just military targets but economic ones, mining facilities, trade stations, industrial worlds, anything that supported the Xanthir war machine. The message would be clear. If you fight humanity, everything you value becomes a target. Back on the Roosevelt, Diana received the new orders. Her crew had been in combat for 3 months straight. They were tired and running low on supplies, but the mission wasn't done. Not even close. She addressed the crew over the ship's intercom. We've shown the Xanthir that we can hurt them. Now we're going to show them we can cripple them. Our next targets are the industrial centers that supply their fleet. We're going to hit them where it really hurts, in their economy and their ability to make war. Lieutenant Kevin checked the weapon systems one more time. The young officer who had questioned whether to warn the enemy was gone. In his place was a hardened warrior who understood that survival required terrible choices. He had family back on Earth in one of the underground cities. A sister and a nephew who were alive because Kevin and people like him were out here making the galaxy afraid of humanity. The Roosevelt jumped back into faster-than-light travel heading for a major, Xanthir industrial complex. Diana knew this mission was even more dangerous than the previous ones. The industrial worlds would be better defended. More ships, more weapons, higher chance of casualties, but that was fine. Every human on the Roosevelt had volunteered, knowing they might not come home. As the ship traveled through the strange dimensions of faster-than-light space, Diana thought about Earth, about the 200 million graves, about the children growing up in underground cities learning math and physics instead of playing games, about an entire species that had been forced to become warriors or die. The Xanthir had made a choice 5 years ago when they came to Earth. They had chosen to test humanity with violence. Now humanity was teaching them what that choice really meant. The galaxy thought humans were weak, primitive, easily controlled. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Xanthir Dominion hadn't maintained its power in the Galactic Council by being incompetent. When they finally understood the magnitude of humanity's offensive, They responded with overwhelming force. A battle fleet of 40 warships was assembled, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen planets. Their mission was simple: go to Earth and finish what should have been done 5 years ago. Admiral Kyle Bennett watched the intelligence reports from his command center on Phobos. The enemy fleet would reach the solar system in 6 weeks. Humanity now had 43 operational warships with another 100 in various stages of construction. The numbers looked close, but the Xanthir had centuries of combat experience and shield technology that humanity still couldn't fully replicate. Commander Lisa Grant stated the obvious: "We can't win a straight fight. We need some kind of advantage or they'll destroy us." Bennett studied the tactical display of the solar system. "Then we won't give them a straight fight. They're coming here expecting primitives with stolen technology. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you give an entire species a reason to hate you." The plan was ambitious. Turn the entire solar system into a weapon. Every asteroid in the belt had been fitted with hidden weapons platforms. Every planet hosted missile batteries powerful enough to destroy moons. The human fleet would act as bait. Draw the Xanthir into a carefully prepared kill zone and then hit them with everything at once. Dr. Nathan Pierce contributed the final piece of the puzzle. His team had developed something called the Cascade Disruptor, a weapon that could overload the quantum fields powering Xanthir shields. It was untested and potentially unstable, but it was humanity's best chance at victory. "We get one shot with this," Nathan explained to the military commanders. "The disruptor creates a field that propagates through linked shield systems. If we can hit their flagship, the cascade should spread through their entire fleet for about 90 seconds. Admiral Bennett understood immediately. 90 seconds. That's not much time, but it might be enough to show them we're not prey. Meanwhile, the Roosevelt and her sister ships continued their campaign across Xanthir space. Captain Diana Ross had become a legend among humans and a nightmare for the Xanthir. The human captain who appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before anyone could stop her. The truth was, Diana wasn't operating alone. Humanity had infiltrated the Xanthir communication network with advanced computer programs. Every patrol route, every garrison location, every supply convoy. Humanity knew about it within hours of the orders being transmitted. The information advantage was enormous. Ryan Hughes led what might have been the most daring operation of the war. He took his team back to the Xanthir homeworld, not to attack this time, but to infiltrate even deeper into their systems. They broke into the planetary defense headquarters, planted surveillance equipment throughout the building, and escaped with detailed information about how the Xanthir military actually operated. The intelligence was both valuable and troubling. The Galactic Council maintained order through a doctrine of overwhelming response. Any species that challenged them faced coordinated military action from multiple member states. The Xanthir attack on Earth had been minor by Council standards. If humanity truly threatened Council, interests they would face not just the Xanthir, but a coalition of multiple species commanding thousands of warships. President Collins convened an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. "We're winning every battle," he said grimly, "but we're about to lose the war. Once the Council perceives us as a genuine threat, they'll mobilize forces we simply cannot defeat with what we have." General Hayes had a grim solution. "Then we need to make them afraid to mobilize. We need to be so dangerous and unpredictable that the cost of fighting us seems worse than just leaving us alone." Ambassador Patricia Cole shook her head. "You're describing a strategy of terror, attacking anything and everything to make them fear us more than they want to control us." Hayes met her eyes. "I'm describing survival. The Xanthir killed 200 million of us in one afternoon because they saw us as irrelevant. Now we're teaching them that humanity is never irrelevant. If that requires us to become something we never wanted to be, then so be it." The debate was intense, but the decision was ultimately made. Humanity would not wait for the Xanthir fleet to reach Earth. They would strike first, not at military targets, but at the infrastructure supporting the Xanthir economy. The message would be unmistakable. Attack humanity and everything you value becomes fair game. Admiral Bennett prepared the entire operational fleet for deployment. Every warship would participate in a coordinated offensive designed to cripple Xanthir logistics across 3 sectors. It was risky. Spreading their forces thin made each ship more vulnerable, but the psychological impact would be worth it. On Earth, people watched the news broadcast with mixed feelings. Some celebrated every human victory, Every Xanthir installation destroyed felt like justice for the 200 million dead. Others worried about what humanity was becoming, about whether survival justified the things they were doing. But everyone understood there was no going back. They had crossed a line. Now they would either win or be exterminated. Captain Diana Ross stood on the Roosevelt's bridge preparing for what might be their final mission. Her orders were to strike the Xanthir regional capital during the main fleet battle at Earth, create chaos and confusion, divide enemy attention, make them fight on multiple fronts simultaneously. It was effectively a suicide mission, but Diana had 297 volunteers who believed the cause was worth dying for. Set course for Xanthir Major, she ordered. Maximum faster than light speed. If this is where we make our last stand, then let's make it count for something. Lieutenant Kevin Morris checked the weapons systems one final time. He thought about his sister back on Earth, about his nephew who was only 3 years old, about all the people depending on the Roosevelt to buy them time, to hurt the enemy badly enough that maybe Earth would survive. The Xanthir battle fleet entered the solar system exactly on schedule. Fleet Commander Zareth had fought in 17 campaigns across his long career. He expected minimal resistance. Perhaps a few human ships would delay the inevitable, but ultimately this would be a demonstration of Xanthir superiority. He was catastrophically wrong about everything. The first indication something was different came from sensors, thousands of contacts throughout the system, objects that appeared to be asteroids but were moving under power. Converging on the fleet from multiple directions, report, Zareth demanded. His tactical officer looked confused. Unknown weapons platforms, sir. They're everywhere. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Before Zareth could issue orders, the asteroids revealed themselves. Magnetic accelerators fired. The void filled with tungsten projectiles, thousands of tons of metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The Xanthir shields held, but the sheer volume of fire was unprecedented. All ships combat formation Delta, Zareth ordered. Target those platforms and destroy them. That's when Admiral Bennett's fleet appeared. 43 human warships dropping from faster-than-light travel behind the Xanthir formation. Each ship painted with the names of cities the Xanthir had destroyed. Beijing, New York, Moscow, London, Tokyo. The hulls were covered with names of the dead. All ships. Bennett transmitted on an open channel. Weapons free. Show them what humanity learned. The human fleet opened fire with coordinated precision. They didn't shoot randomly but focused on specific ships. Overwhelming individual shields through concentrated fire. The Xanthir returned fire and human ships started dying. The Beijing took a plasma lance through her reactor core. 200 lives lost in an instant. But for every human ship destroyed, the fleet eliminated 2 Xanthir vessels. The defenders of Earth were fighting for survival, for their families, for 200 million dead. The Xanthir were fighting for dominance and principle. That difference mattered more than technology. Deploy the disruptor, Bennett ordered. The science vessel Aurora emerged from where it had been hiding in Jupiter's magnetic shadow. Dr. Nathan Pierce was aboard, personally overseeing his creation. The Cascade disruptor powered up, drawing enough energy to dim lights across 3 continents on Earth. Target locked on the Xanthir flagship, Nathan reported. Firing now. The quantum disruption wave crossed space at light speed and struck Zareth's command ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then shields flickered and failed. The cascade propagated through the linked defensive network exactly as Nathan calculated. For 90 seconds, the entire Xanthir fleet was vulnerable. All weapons fire, everything, Bennett roared. The human fleet unleashed absolute hell. Every weapon, every missile, every piece of ordnance they possessed. The Xanthir ships, suddenly stripped of shields, died by the dozens. Zareth watched his fleet disintegrate. 23 ships gone in 90 seconds. All ships emergency faster than light jump, he ordered. Random vectors, retreat. The surviving Xanthir vessels vanished, leaving debris and wreckage. Admiral Bennett surveyed the damage. 15 human ships destroyed, 8 heavily damaged, nearly 4,000 casualties. But they had won. Earth had survived. While the battle raged at Earth, Captain Diana Ross was completing her own mission halfway across the galaxy. The Roosevelt dropped from faster-than-light travel above Xanthir Major, the heavily defended capital world of the Dominion. Diana had timed her arrival to coincide with the fleet battle at Earth. She was counting on confusion and divided attention to give her the opening she needed. Launch all kinetic strikes, she ordered calmly. Target their orbital infrastructure, then we're going planetside. The Roosevelt's magnetic accelerators hurled projectiles into the shipyards and defense platforms orbiting the planet. Simultaneously, Ryan Hughes and his Marines loaded into dropships. Everyone knew this was a one-way mission. They were going down to the surface of the enemy homeworld, and they probably weren't coming back. "We're not trying to conquer this world," Ryan told his troops, as atmosphere screamed past the dropship hull. "We're making a statement. We're proving that nowhere is safe if you make an enemy of humanity." The Marines hit the planetary capital like a meteor strike. They fought through elite Xanthir guards who had never faced an enemy on their own soil before. The aliens were shocked, confused. How had primitive humans reached the heart of the Dominion? Ryan and his team carved a path through the defenders with ruthless efficiency. They reached the central government chamber where the Dominion leadership was in emergency session. Ryan kicked down the doors and his Marines secured the room in seconds. The Xanthir officials cowered behind their desks. These were the people who had ordered the attack on Earth 5 years ago, who had casually authorized the deaths of 200 million humans as part of a test. Ryan planted a human flag in the center of the chamber. Blue and white with an image of Earth at the center, he activated his holographic recorder, knowing this message would be transmitted across the entire galaxy. "This message is for the Galactic Council," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "You came to Earth 5 years ago. You murdered our people to test us. You thought we were weak. You thought we would submit. You were wrong. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. Humanity will never submit. This flag stays here as a reminder. You can kill us, but you cannot break us." The Roosevelt extracted the Marines under heavy fire. They lost a third of the ground force, but everyone who died took dozens of Xanthir with them. Diana's ship escaped the system damaged but intact. She set course back to Earth knowing she was carrying the most important cargo of the war. Proof that humanity could strike anywhere at any time. In the Galactic Council chambers, 17 species watched recordings from both battles in stunned silence. A primitive species dismissed as irrelevant 5 years ago had just defeated a major military fleet. Had struck at a homeworld thought to be impregnable. The implications were staggering and terrifying. The Xanthir delegate was nearly incoherent with rage. "This cannot stand. We must mobilize the full council fleet. We must exterminate these humans before they become an even greater threat." But other voices disagreed. The Keldan ambassador, representing an insectoid species known for strategic thinking, spoke carefully. The Xanthir provoked this conflict with an unprovoked assault. These humans have demonstrated not just capability, but the will to fight to extinction if necessary. Perhaps negotiation is warranted? The Xanthir delegate scoffed. "Negotiate with primitives," the Keldan corrected him quietly. "Negotiate with survivors. They have earned that much at least." The debate would continue for months. Arguments about humanity's place in the galactic order. Whether they should be destroyed or accepted. Whether the Xanthir had brought this upon themselves. But the fundamental equation had changed. Humanity was no longer a curiosity to be catalogued. They were a force that demanded respect. On Earth, President Collins addressed a weary but victorious population. The broadcast reached every underground city, every habitat on Mars and the Moon, every mining station in the asteroid belt. "We have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of when pushed to the edge. But this is not the end. This is only the beginning. We will never be vulnerable again. We will never be victims again. Humanity has claimed its place among the stars, and we will defend it with everything we are." The Roosevelt limped back to the solar system 3 weeks later. Her hull was scarred with impact craters and burn marks, but her crew was alive and her mission was complete. Captain Diana Ross stepped onto the docking platform at Mars Orbital Station. Admiral Bennett was waiting for her. "Well done, Captain," he said simply. "You and your crew changed history today." Diana looked out at the shipyards where hundreds of new vessels were under construction. "We opened a door, sir. Now we need to be strong enough to keep it open. Strong enough that nobody ever thinks about attacking us again." Bennett nodded in agreement. "That's exactly what we're going to do." The galaxy never expected humanity to retaliate. They thought we would just accept our place at the bottom of their hierarchy. They learned the hard way that humans don't work like that. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council imposed sanctions on humanity. Trade embargoes, travel restrictions, diplomatic isolation. They tried to contain humanity through economic pressure rather than military force. But it didn't work. Humans had learned to be self-sufficient during 5 years of desperate preparation. They didn't need galactic trade. They had everything they needed in their own solar system. More importantly, humanity continued building their fleet. The automated shipyards came online and production accelerated exponentially. Within a year, humanity had 200 warships. Within 2 years, they had 500. Each one more advanced than the last as human engineers improved on captured Xanthir technology and developed innovations of their own. Captain Ryan Hughes recovered from his wounds and returned to duty. He was promoted to major and given command of the entire Marine Corps. His job was to train the next generation of warriors. Young people who had grown up in the underground cities, who had learned to hate the aliens before they learned to walk. Dr. Nathan Pierce continued pushing the boundaries of physics. His team developed better, faster than light drives, more powerful weapons, advanced shield systems that actually surpassed Xanthir technology. Humanity was no longer copying alien science. They were innovating beyond it. The Xanthir learned to fear human ships. When sensors detected a vessel with human signatures, Xanthir captains would often retreat rather than engage. The species that had casually destroyed Earth's cities now avoided confrontation. The psychological impact was profound. Other species in the Galactic Council watched humanity's rise with mixed feelings. Some saw potential allies. Others saw a threat that needed to be contained. But all of them understood that the galaxy had changed. Humanity had forced their way onto the stage and they weren't going away. 5 years after the Battle of Earth, Ambassador Patricia Cole attended her first Galactic Council session. She wasn't invited. She simply showed up with an armed escort of 50 Marines. The Council had a choice. They could try to forcibly remove her and start another war, or they could accept that humanity now had a seat at the table. They chose acceptance. Patricia stood before the assembled delegates and delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. 5 years ago, the Xanthir came to Earth. They killed 200 million of our people. They did it to test us, to see if we were worth their consideration. Today I stand before you representing a species that answered that test. We are here. We are not leaving. And if any of you ever threaten humanity again, you will learn exactly what we're capable of. The council chamber was silent. Then slowly, one by one, other delegates began nodding. Not in friendship. Not in alliance. But in acknowledgement. Humanity had proven they belonged among the spacefaring races. They had paid for their seat at the table in blood. Back on Earth, children still grew up in underground cities. People still worked in factories building weapons, because humanity hadn't forgotten the lesson the Xanthir taught them. The galaxy was dangerous. Survival required strength. Peace required the ability to make war. But now when humans looked at the stars, they didn't see death falling from the sky. They saw opportunity. They saw new worlds to explore, new species to meet, and if necessary, new enemies to defeat, because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all: never give up, never surrender, and never let anyone make you feel small. The galaxy had come to Earth expecting to find prey. Instead, they found predators. They came expecting submission. Instead, they found defiance. They thought they could break humanity with a single demonstration of force. They learned the hard way that humanity doesn't break. They bend, they adapt, they learn, and then they come back stronger than before. The Xanthir made their choice 5 years ago. They chose violence as their first contact. They chose to test humanity through destruction. Now they lived with the consequences of that choice. A species that would never trust them, would never forgive them, would always remember what happened when 200 million humans died in a single afternoon. And across the galaxy, other species looked at humanity and made their own calculations. Some saw potential friends. Some saw rivals. Some saw threats. But all of them understood one fundamental truth. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again.